There is something special about living in Montana. The mountains, the fresh air, and apparently even giant birds. At an emu ranch in Lewis and Clark County, it's not unusual to hear the low drum of emus echoing across the property long before you see them. They're curious, surprisingly gentle, and honestly a little hilarious, with the way they tilt their heads like they're silently judging you. Behind all the feathers, there is a story that is built on curiosity, hard work, and the unexpected path that led two guys into a world of emu ranching. And if you've ever wondered how a couple of regular guys ended up raising birds in Montana that looked like they just walked out of the dinosaur age, well, they took over a retiring ranch in Kalispell, Montana. One rancher steps out and two new ranchers step in. Welcome to Burd Ranch, where Montana meets magic, one giant bird at a time.
My name is Mike Romasco. I got into this with Eric Thomas here. It's been about a 2-year on process right now. Primarily interested in the oil from these birds as they're harvested for its medicinal purposes. That's kind of what got us into it.
Yeah, that's got some intriguing things to it. We'll talk about that further. My name's Eric Thomas. I moved here about 8 years ago. I found this amazing mechanic and we became good friends, and he's got a brilliant mind. So when I presented this idea to him, he latched on. He saw how great it was.
Most people pick up hobbies like gardening and fishing, but Mike and Eric picked up raising giant flightless birds with attitudes. When Eric moved to Montana and crossed paths with Mike, their friendship was instant. They both shared the same dream, and learning each other's bright ideas, they knew without a doubt they were going to leap into the unknown and follow their dream of emu ranching. It didn't take long for the two of them to realize they were on the edge of something unusual, exciting, and maybe even a little pioneering for Montana. Mike and Eric didn't get into this because it was trendy or easy. They stepped into it because these birds have a real medicinal value, fascinating biology, and a whole lot of potential.
I can tell you a little bit about it because I have some history with it. I was interested in this about the late 80s and early 90s. Not like I'm that old, but back then they thought that the emu market would take over the beef market because the meat is so superior. It's like the highest in iron, highest in B12, lowest in fat. It's a great meat, and it's easier for them it's cheaper for them to be raised, and they can stay in one area. And so like a breeder pair would be like $70,000 or $80,000, and chicks would go for like $6,000. And then the market, I was just watching that, and the market crashed. And then when I was here in Montana, I actually ran into a couple of emus that were laying up in Great Falls. And so I tried to hatch some, and they weren't viable, but I was so excited about it that I went out and got some chicks, and then got a breeder pair out in Washington. And then as Mike and I got a little bit closer on this, there was a gentleman in Montana that was getting out of ranching. And so we kind of took over his operations. That was up in Kalispell, the Montana Emu Ranch. And so we brought things here. And as Mike said, the last 2 years, we've been building and bringing these birds down so that they can flourish and lay eggs. And like I've got 60 chicks over at my place that are now about this high. And so that's sort of how we've evolved to coming into emu ranching, and it's amazing.
Running an emu ranch isn't as chaotic as some people imagine. It's not feathers flying and birds sprinting around like a comedy show. Most days are calm and routine, almost peaceful in their own way. But there's a rhythm to it, and Mike and Eric learned it well. Mike's morning routine is simple but essential. Walking the pins, looking for anything unusual, and making sure every bird made it through the night feeling good. Emus are hardy animals and creatures of habit. They nap, they sunbathe, they wander, and sometimes stare at you like you just interrupted their morning meditation. Occasionally, they break into short bursts of running. If you haven't seen an emu sprint, it's equal parts impressive and hilarious. Emus go through strange little phases. The trick is to know the difference between normal behavior and when something needs attention.
So the day-to-day, when you check on the birds once in the morning, usually daybreak or a little bit after daybreak, walk through all the pens, see how the birds are doing, see if they did okay over the evening. They can be left alone pretty much during the middle of the day, but then you do a round check on them in the evening too, check their water and check their food levels. They go through spurts on both drinking water and food, so at times they won't eat for a week at a time, or they may not drink for a week at a time. And so it's really weird to see the change in the feeders where they may empty once in a while in 3 or 4 days.
Then there is egg season, and that changes everything. Those quiet days turn into busier ones, full of checking nests, keeping track of hens, and preparing for the possibility of chicks. It's the most exciting time of the year and the most unpredictable. The hens start laying anywhere from dusk to dark, which means evenings become egg patrol time. It's a mixture of science, timing, and a bit of a race against the cold Montana weather. Gathering emu eggs isn't some slow stroll across the ranch. It's a timed mission. Montana winters don't play around, and neither do the emus. So every dusk, Mike and Eric bundle up, head outside with flashlights, and check each pen like clockwork. It's careful work, a little chilly, and sometimes a little suspenseful. But it's one of the most rewarding parts of the job.
You talked about, gathering them, like a rooster will wait till he gets a clutch, like 6 or 8. And I don't know how he keeps them warm, because if it's getting below freezing, they'll crack. And so, but he'll get like 6 or 8, and then he'll sit on those eggs for like 50 days. It takes 50 days for an egg to hatch. And so he won't get up hardly for food or water, because he's just staying there maintaining the temperature. I don't know how they survived 80 million years, because you've got to keep it like at 97 degrees, 97 and a half degrees with the right humidity for them to hatch. And then, and so, we'll talk about this, but, when they mate, actually, let's break to the third part. So they'll hatch after 50 days, and they'll grow their full size in about a year, right? So they have a high protein diet, like 21%. And then the coming twos, like those that were hatched last spring, a year ago spring, this is kind of where they might start pairing up or mating. And they mate for life. However, if the rooster's down for 50 days, the hen will then need something to occupy her time, so she'll maybe go find another rooster for the interim. I don't know why the guy doesn't get jealous and bugged about it, but so the rooster, will hatch the eggs and then take care of the chicks, because the hen will kind of get nasty towards the chicks. So that's that part. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the hatching. We'll incubate them. We'll take them because we don't want the rooster to be preoccupied with sitting on his eggs. We want him taking care of the hens so that these eggs can be fertile. The hatch rate is not very good. It's like, again, 50%. I don't know how they survived 80 million years. And then they'll come out, and actually they're very, at that time the legs are everything to them. So I'll like tape them so that they kind of have some braces for the first couple weeks until they break and they're strong enough so that they don't get a splayed leg, because if they get a splayed leg, they will not survive. But then, we'll feed them crumble, and then pretty soon they're running around and growing, and we kind of keep them in their same age bracket because they get a little nasty when you have some young ones in with some old ones. Then you grow them out, and the year after, a year and a half after, probably like July of August of the following year or September is when you might process or harvest the birds.
Emus are not just runway models of the ranch world. They're also natural overachievers, as their oil is loved for helping soothe skin, easing sore muscles, and calming inflammation. It's nature's little recovery bottle with feathers. And the meat, super lean, high protein, low in fat, and packed with iron. Basically the athlete of red meats. So next time you see an emu strutting by, just remember you're looking at skincare, muscle support, and a healthy dinner, all in one very sassy package.
As Mike talked about, there's the oil, and I have a background in medicine, so I understand the fatty acids are phenomenal in this oil. Coming from their fat, it's anti-inflammatory, it's good for sunburns or for even radiation burns. He's had some experiences. It's great moisturizer for skins. It's used in a lot of cosmetics. The fatty acids, there's like 6 of them that the skin needs, and it has all 6 of them. The best ones are the omega-3s and the omega-6s. It's got omega-9s too. Quick, deep absorption, and anti-inflammatory. Helps with the collagen, helps with wrinkles, helps with, you can take oral pills, and it helps with like irritable bowel syndrome or any GI problems. So the oil is quite valuable and quite unique, and it's just kind of educating people about the values of this and the different ways one can use it. And then there's the meat, and about in the year 2000, the USDA funded a study for different types of meats, and they checked the emu and the ostrich, the beef, the cow and the elk and the bison and turkey, and they found that the emu meat was superior in all these attributes. Highest in iron, highest in B12, lowest, highest in unsaturated fats, which is what you want, fat-free, 97%, fat-free, and so it's really a great meat. It's a red meat, like a roast, and you want to undercook it or just make it rare because there's really no problems with it. And so the meat was sort of a byproduct because the real interest is the oil. But as people get educated, there's also a medical problem out now where people are developing allergies to meat, to red meat, where they'll get hives or itching or anaphylactic shock or GI problems. They even have problems with hypotension because it comes from a tick, similar to Lyme's disease, where if you get bit by a tick too much, you'll develop this meat allergy, where every one of these meats, red meats, has this receptor on it that causes the body to react. However, the emu meat does not have that receptor, so people that have alpha-gal will want to get this meat because this is a red meat that they can have instead of fish or chicken.
So in a place where most ranches are passed down through generations, this one took a different path. On one side is Dr. Eric Thomas, bringing knowledge, care, and precision. On the other side is Mike Romanesco, a local who inherited Harry's Frame and Alignment Services on York Road in Montana, who somehow went from fixing front ends to adding care for long-legged emus to his list of things to do, all on his own land. Together, in just a few short years, they've built something completely unexpected. So what do you get when you mix a doctor, a mechanic, and a pasture full of birds with attitude? You get a Montana-grown operation that proves innovation.
We just barely started this, and this last season we just had a small processing we did, and we're actually offering it for free for samples. If you want to contact us, we'd be glad to help set it up. We've got some great ground emu and some steaks. There's some great steaks that, the flat fan and the rump. So you should try it because it's really amazing. We're trying to get the word out because it's a great product and people don't know enough about it.
Yeah. You don't just get to hear about emu meat, oil, and the day-to-day care for them. You get to try it. That's right. Thanks to Eric and Mike, free samples are up for grabs. So go ahead and officially become part of the I Tried Emu and Live to Tell the Story Club. Try it, judge it, and decide for yourself if this is the most productive bird in Montana.